My name is Ingrid Bechtman, and I'm 32 years old. While I was building my career as a real estate attorney in London, my sister sold my $3.2 million inheritance behind my back, a penthouse our grandmother left specifically to me. She forged my signature, manipulated our father, and thought I'd never fight back because I was always the weak one in the family. But what happened in that boardroom on March 15th changed everything. Before I share how 47 executives watched my sister's empire crumble in real time, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. I'm curious, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I love connecting with viewers worldwide. Now let me take you back to where this betrayal began, and how a single clause in my grandmother's will became my sister's downfall. Growing up in the Beckman household meant understanding your place in the hierarchy early. Victoria, 6 years my senior, claimed the throne the day she was born. By 28, she'd secured the corner office at Beckman Holdings, our family's real estate development firm, while I was still fetching coffee for senior partners, despite having passed the Washington State Bar exam with distinction. Top 5% of my class, not that anyone in my family noticed. Ingrid's too soft for this business, my father Robert would say at family dinners, usually while Victoria regaled us with her latest killer deal. The irony? I'd been quietly handling the legal framework for half of those deals, fixing Victoria's oversights without anyone knowing. My billable hours at Preston and Associates exceeded every other junior associate's, but at home, I remained invisible. Only Grandma Eleanor saw through the facade. During our Sunday tea sessions, the one family tradition Victoria always skipped, she'd squeeze my hand and say, "Patience, dear one. The meek shall inherit far more than the earth." I thought it was just biblical comfort from an 87-year-old woman. I didn't know she meant it literally. When Grandma passed, the will reading revealed something unexpected. Her Crown Heights penthouse, valued at $3.2 million, was left entirely to me. Not split, not shared, mine alone. Victoria's face had turned 3 shades of purple. "This must be a mistake," she'd hissed to our father. "I'm the one who manages real estate. I'm the vice president." But there was no mistake. The will was ironclad, with something called Clause 7.3 that our family lawyer mentioned briefly, something about protection against fraudulent transfers. I should have paid more attention to that clause. It would later save everything. The offer from Steinberg and Associates' London office came like a lifeline in January. 18 months abroad, focusing on international real estate law, with a salary of $180,000 annually plus housing. It was everything I'd worked for, validation that someone, somewhere, recognized my capabilities. "You can't seriously be considering this," Victoria had said, barging into my apartment uninvited. "What about your responsibilities here? To the family? To the firm?" "What responsibilities?" I'd asked. "Fetching your dry cleaning? Covering for your mistakes?" Her jaw had tightened. "Dad needs you here. The family needs you here." What she meant was, she needed me here, doing her grunt work while she collected accolades. But for once, I didn't cave. I accepted the position and booked my flight for February 1st. The night before I left, Dad pulled me aside. "This London thing, Victoria thinks it's a bad idea. Maybe you should reconsider." "Victoria thinks anything that doesn't benefit her is a bad idea," I'd replied, surprising myself with the boldness. 6 months into my London assignment, everything changed. The call came at 3 a.m. local time. Grandma Eleanor had passed peacefully in her sleep. I flew back for the funeral, where Victoria played the grieving granddaughter perfectly, despite having visited Grandma exactly twice in the past year. The will reading happened 2 weeks later, and that's when the penthouse bombshell dropped. Victoria contested it immediately, but the lawyer, Mr. Morrison, stood firm. "Mrs. Beckman's instructions were quite specific," he'd said, adjusting his glasses. "The property goes to Ingrid, with all associated rights and protections under Clause 7.3. I returned to London thinking the matter was settled. I had 11 more months in my contract, and the penthouse would be waiting when I returned. How naive I was. Month 14 in London, I received an email that made my blood run cold. It wasn't from our family lawyer. It was from a property management company I'd never heard of, thanking me for completing the sale of the Crown Heights penthouse. My hands shook as I called Mr. Morrison. There must be some mistake. I never authorized any sale. Miss Beckman, I'm looking at the documents now. Your signature is on everything. The closing was 3 weeks ago. That's impossible. I've been in London for over a year. The silence on the other end stretched too long. The notarization shows it was done in person, in Seattle. Perhaps you should check with your sister. I knew before I even dialed her number. Victoria answered on the second ring, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Oh, Ingrid, I was just about to call you, about the penthouse. You sold it. Not a question. Well, technically you sold it. Your signature is on everything. The money's already been transferred to a family trust for better investment opportunities. Dad agreed it was the smart move. That's forgery, Victoria. That's a felony. She actually laughed. Please, you were always too soft for this family anyway. Consider it a lesson in real business. Besides, who's going to believe you? You've been gone over a year. For all anyone knows, you flew back to handle it. Clause 7.3, I said quietly. The will specified that any fraudulent transfer would be null and void, with triple damages. The pause was delicious. You're bluffing. Am I? The will was recorded on video, Victoria. Grandma's lawyer has the original with her verbal confirmation. Every word, including the part where she specifically said she was protecting the inheritance from family members who might take advantage. That's when she said something that changed everything. Good luck proving anything from London, little sister. I couldn't sleep for 3 days after Victoria's confession. On the fourth day, I did what any good lawyer would do. I started building my case. First, I needed to verify the actual damage. The penthouse had sold for $3.2 million, but where had the money gone? Banking records revealed the truth. $1.8 million had already been transferred to Victoria's personal investment account, not any family trust. The rest sat in an escrow account, pending final documentation review, a 30-day window that was rapidly closing. I contacted Marcus Thompson, the notary whose name appeared on the forged documents. His reaction was immediate and visceral. I've never notarized anything for an Ingrid Beckman. This isn't even my legitimate seal. Someone used an expired stamp from my old office that closed 2 years ago. Would you be willing to testify to that? Willing? I'm obligated. This is fraud against my license. Send me everything. The real shock came when I pulled the building's security footage through a contact at the management company. The woman who signed my name on the sale documents was Clara Hendricks, Victoria's personal assistant, wearing a wig that vaguely resembled my hair. The cameras caught everything, her nervous glances, Victoria waiting in the car outside, even the moment they high-fived afterward. But here's what Victoria didn't know. Grandma's will had been recorded in full, with 3 camera angles, at Morrison's insistence. Your grandmother was very specific, he told me over Skype. She said, I know my family, document everything. The video is time-stamped, notarized, and stored in 3 separate locations. That's when she said something that changed everything, I told Marcus. She practically admitted to the fraud, thinking I was powerless to stop her. Oh, you're anything but powerless, Marcus replied. This is a slam dunk case. The question is, do you want justice or revenge? Marcus Thompson became my strongest ally. Within 48 hours, he'd compiled a forensic document examination that would make any prosecutor weep with joy. The signature analysis alone shows 17 points of divergence from your authentic signature, he explained over video call. But this forged seal? That's federal fraud. I can prove it in court with my eyes closed. I hired a private investigator, James Reeves, who uncovered more than I'd bargained for. Victoria had been planning this for months. Email trails showed she'd researched forgers, practiced my signature, and even calculated exactly when to strike, during my busiest period in London when I'd be least likely to notice immediately. There's more, James said during our encrypted call. She's used the money to buy additional shares in Beckman Holdings. She's planning a takeover, wants to push your father into early retirement and claim the CEO position. The clock was ticking. We had 12 days before the 30-day contestation window closed, but rushing to court would mean a private settlement, sealed records, and Victoria spinning it as a family misunderstanding. I wanted something more. What if we wait? I proposed to Marcus. The board meeting is March 15th. That's when she plans to announce her increased ownership and make her CEO bid. That's risky. You could lose the contestation window. Not if we file a sealed preliminary injunction now, but request a delayed hearing date. Judge Harrison owes me a favor from the waterfront case. We can lock in our claim but choose our moment for the reveal. Marcus examined the signature for exactly 3 seconds before declaring, "This is forgery, and I can prove it. But Ingrid, if you're going to do this publicly, you need ironclad evidence. No room for doubt." "Then let's get it all," I said. "Every document, every witness, every frame of footage. If you've ever been underestimated by your own family, drop a comment below. What would you do in Ingrid's position? Confront immediately or plan strategically? Don't forget to hit that notification bell because the revelation at the board meeting is something you won't want to miss. By the way, where are you watching from? I love connecting with viewers worldwide. Let's continue with how I turned from the family doormat into the one holding all the cards. I could have sued immediately, but I wanted something more. I wanted witnesses who mattered. The Beckman Holdings board meeting wasn't just any gathering. It included 3 former senators, 2 federal judges' spouses, and investment partners managing over $2 billion in assets. These were the people Victoria desperately wanted to impress. "You're playing with fire," my London colleague David warned when I explained my plan. "What if she discovers you're onto her?" "She won't," I said, booking my flight back to Seattle for March 14th. Victoria's fatal flaw has always been her arrogance. She thinks I'm still in London, drowning in work, too weak to fight back. I spent the next weeks building an airtight presentation. 47 slides of evidence, each one more damning than the last. The forged signatures, the security footage, the money trail, Marcus's testimony, the crown jewel, an email Victoria sent to Clara saying, "Make sure the wig matches her LinkedIn photo. The notary won't know the difference." The private investigator uncovered something else. Victoria had done this before. 2 elderly clients at Beckman Holdings had complained about mysteriously signed documents. Both cases were quietly settled, but the patterns were identical. "This changes everything," Marcus said when I shared the findings. "This isn't just fraud. It's a pattern of criminal behavior. The board will have no choice but to act." I filed the sealed injunction on March 1st. Judge Harrison granted it with a hearing date of March 16th, one day after the board meeting. "You sure about this timing?" he asked, reading between the lines. "Absolutely certain, Your Honor." The trap was set. All I needed was for Victoria to walk into it. And knowing my sister's need to boast about her brilliance, she would dance right in. Victoria's email arrived March 5th, sent to the entire family and key board members. "I'm pleased to announce that through strategic investment of underutilized family assets, I've acquired an additional 12% stake in Beckman Holdings, bringing my total ownership to 31%, the largest individual shareholder position." She'd CC'd me, of course, with a personal note. "Hope London is treating you well, little sister. Don't worry about rushing back for the board meeting. I'll handle everything, as always." My father called an hour later. "Your sister's done something remarkable, Ingrid. She's secured our family's control of the company. You should be proud." "Proud that she used stolen money, Dad?" "What stolen money? She said you agreed to liquidate the penthouse for family investments." "From London? Without ever signing anything in person?" His silence spoke volumes. Deep down, he knew something was off, but Victoria had always been his golden child. "Well, she has the documents." "Does she? Have you actually seen them?" "Victoria handles all that. You know I trust her judgment." That trust was about to be shattered. Victoria sent another email 2 days before the meeting, this one even more condescending. Dear board members, I look forward to presenting my vision for Beckman Holdings' future. My sister Ingrid will be joining us via video link from London to witness this historic moment. She had no idea I was already in Seattle, staying at a hotel under my middle name. James, my investigator, had been tracking her movements. She's meeting with Crawford Investment Group tomorrow, he reported, promising them insider advantages once she's CEO. Her email invitation for the board meeting was dripping with condescension. Do try to dress appropriately, little sister. The video quality is quite good these days. If only she knew what I had in my briefcase. The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. Grandma Eleanor's estate lawyer had been holding something back. Your grandmother insisted I only share this if the penthouse became an issue, Mr. Morrison explained, sliding a USB drive across his desk. The video was dated 6 months before her death. Grandma sat in her library looking directly at the camera with those sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. This penthouse goes to Ingrid, my brave granddaughter who never got her due. If anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to take it from her through deception, they should know that I've prepared for that possibility. Clause 7.3 isn't just words on paper, it's a trap for the greedy. But the real bombshell came next. I've also documented every instance where Victoria has taken credit for Ingrid's work, every forged signature on family documents, every lie told to maintain her facade. It's all in a safety deposit box at First National, number 4782. Ingrid has the key. She just doesn't know it yet. It's hidden in the music box I gave her for her 18th birthday. I drove home immediately and found the music box. Sure enough, taped inside was a small key. The safety deposit box contained 3 years of documented fraud, not just against me, but against the company. Victoria had been skimming from client escrow accounts, small amounts that added up to nearly $400,000. Marcus reviewed everything with growing excitement. This is a RICO case if I've ever seen one. Pattern of racketeering activity, wire fraud, mail fraud. The FBI would have a field day. I don't want the FBI, I said. I want the board to see exactly who they're about to make CEO. The video showed Grandma's firm voice. This penthouse goes to Ingrid, my brave granddaughter, who never got her due. 2 nights before the board meeting, my mother hosted her traditional family dinner. I attended secretly, watching from my rental car, as Victoria arrived in her new Tesla, purchased, no doubt, with my inheritance money. My cousin Sarah, who'd never liked Victoria, was my inside eyes. She texted me updates throughout the evening. V is bragging about her investment prowess. Your dad is eating it up. Your mom looks uncomfortable but won't say anything. Then came the text that made me smile. She just said the penthouse was dead weight, and she did you a favor by converting it to liquid assets. Claims you thanked her for it. Sarah, bless her, couldn't resist needling. Really? Ingrid thanked you? That's odd, since she told me last week she never approved any sale. You must have misunderstood, Victoria replied smoothly, according to Sarah's next text. Ingrid's been so busy in London, she probably forgot. I have all the paperwork. The arrogance was breathtaking. Victoria was so confident in her scheme that she was bragging about it at family dinner, creating witnesses to her own fraud. Sarah's final text included a photo. Victoria showing off documents to my father, pointing at what was supposedly my signature. Dad's examining them now, looks confused. V just said Ingrid signed these before she left for London, just in case we needed to act quickly. The lie kept growing. Now she was claiming I'd pre-signed blank documents, something any first-year law student would know was legally worthless. Oh, Ingrid, still hung up on that old apartment? Victoria had said when my name came up again. I told you, it's already gone to better use. You'll thank me when you see the returns. I would indeed thank her, publicly, at the board meeting, for providing such clear evidence of her criminal intent. The night before the board meeting, I sat in my hotel room with everything laid out like evidence for trial. My laptop contained the presentation, Beckman Holdings, Compliance Review, 47 slides that would destroy Victoria's career in under 20 minutes. Marcus Thompson confirmed he'd be in the building. I'll wait in the lobby until you text me. Security knows I'm coming for a notary verification. They won't question it. I'd sent discreet emails to 5 key board members, including Judge Patricia Winters, retired, and Senator Michael Crawford. The subject line was simple: urgent. Document verification required for tomorrow's meeting. The message was vague but concerning enough to ensure they'd attend in person rather than phone in. My briefcase contained hard copies of everything: the forged documents, the real signatures for comparison, bank statements, security footage screenshots, and Grandma's USB drive. But the masterstroke was the tablet cued to the video of Grandma explaining Clause 7.3 and her suspicions about Victoria. I labeled my briefcase simply: Beckman Holdings, Compliance Review. David Chen, my backup lawyer, would be on standby via video link from London, ready to verify the international timeline that proved I couldn't have signed those documents in Seattle. The final touch came from an unexpected ally. Clara Hendricks, Victoria's assistant, had reached out through James. "I can't testify," she said, "but I can accidentally leave my desk unlocked tomorrow. The original forgery practice sheets are in the bottom drawer. Victoria made me keep them for reference." At 11 p.m., Victoria sent one last email to the board. "Tomorrow marks a new chapter for Beckman Holdings. I trust you'll all support the natural progression of leadership." I smiled, closing my laptop. Tomorrow would indeed mark a new chapter, just not the one Victoria expected. The Beckman Holdings boardroom occupied the entire 42nd floor, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Elliott Bay. At 2 p.m. sharp on March 15th, 47 of Seattle's most influential people took their seats around the massive oak table. Victoria stood at the podium in her impeccable Armani suit, her smile predatory as she surveyed her audience. I sat in the back corner, having entered with the junior associates. She hadn't noticed me yet. Her eyes were fixed on the board members who mattered. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying that practiced confidence I'd once envied. "Today I stand before you, not just as Vice President of Operations, but as the largest individual shareholder of Beckman Holdings with 31% ownership." Appreciative murmurs rippled through the room. My father beamed from his chairman's seat. Judge Winters, however, was studying her phone with a furrowed brow. My email had done its job. Victoria clicked through her slides, each one showcasing her strategic acquisitions and portfolio optimization. The irony wasn't lost on me. Half the deals she claimed credit for had my legal work as their foundation. "This remarkable growth," she continued, "was achieved through careful management of underutilized family assets, converting stagnant property holdings into dynamic investment capital." Senator Crawford raised his hand. "Impressive numbers, Victoria, but I'm curious about the source of capital for such a significant stock purchase. 31% of Beckman Holdings represents nearly $12 million at current valuation." Victoria's smile never wavered. "An excellent question, Senator. The initial capital came from the liquidation of inherited real estate, property that was sitting empty, generating no revenue." 3 board members were now looking at me with recognition. Judge Winters actually nodded slightly, as if giving me permission. The trap was perfectly set. Mr. Thompson from the audit committee leaned forward. "Victoria, when you say inherited real estate, can you be more specific? Our compliance department needs detailed documentation for transactions of this magnitude." "Of course," Victoria replied smoothly. "The property in question was a Crown Heights penthouse, inherited from my grandmother. The family collectively decided to liquidate it for better returns." "The family collectively?" Thompson pressed. "All parties agreed?" "Absolutely. We have full documentation and signatures from all beneficiaries." That's when I stood up. The room turned in slow motion. Victoria's eyes found mine, and I watched the color drain from her face. "Ingrid? I thought you were—" "In London?" I walked forward, my briefcase in hand. "I was, but it's amazing what family fraud can do to one's schedule. May I address the board?" My father started to object, but Judge Winters cut him off. I think we'd all like to hear from Ms. Beckman, given that she appears to be one of these agreeable beneficiaries. Victoria recovered quickly. This is highly irregular. Ingrid isn't even on the agenda. Neither was grand theft and forgery, I said calmly, setting my briefcase on the table. But here we are. The room went silent. Senator Crawford leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from confusion to keen interest. Ms. Beckman, Ingrid, are you suggesting that the funds used for this stock purchase were obtained illegally? I'm not suggesting anything, Senator. I'm stating it as fact. The penthouse Victoria mentioned, valued at $3.2 million, was left to me exclusively by our grandmother. I never authorized its sale. I never signed any documents. In fact, I was 4,800 miles away when this transaction supposedly occurred. Mr. Thompson's question was perfectly timed, almost as if he knew what was coming. The moment of truth is here. If you think Victoria deserves what's coming, give this video a thumbs up. Have you ever witnessed someone's lies unravel in public? Share your story in the comments. And remember, sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most power. Keep watching. The next 5 minutes will be absolutely explosive. This is where years of being underestimated finally pays off in the most satisfying way possible. I opened my briefcase with deliberate calm, pulling out the first document. I'd like to congratulate my sister on her acquisition of my $3.2 million inheritance through forgery. The boardroom erupted. Several members started talking at once, but I raised my hand. Please, let me present the evidence. Then you can decide whether you want a federal criminal leading this company. Victoria's voice cracked with indignation. This is ridiculous! I have all the documentation. You mean these documents? I placed the forged papers on the projection screen. The ones supposedly notarized by Marcus Thompson, whose notary license expired 2 years before this date? The one signed with my signature that forensic analysis shows has 17 points of divergence from my actual writing? Judge Winters stood up. Ms. Beckman, Victoria, these are serious allegations. Do you have the original documents present? Of course! Victoria fumbled with her folder, her hands visibly shaking now. Everything is perfectly legal. Then you won't mind if we verify them, I said, pulling out my phone. Marcus Thompson is actually downstairs right now. He's very interested in seeing these documents that supposedly bear his seal. The side door opened, and Marcus walked in, carrying his official notary records. Several board members gasped. Victoria took a step back from the podium. That's not necessary, she stammered. Oh, but it is, Senator Crawford said, his voice now cold. Mr. Thompson, can you verify these documents? Marcus didn't even need to examine them closely. These are forgeries. This isn't my seal. It's from my old office that closed in 2021. And I've never notarized anything for an Ingrid Beckman. I have all my records here to prove it. Several board members were now requesting copies of the documents, passing them around with growing alarm. I clicked to my first slide, and Victoria's forged signature appeared next to my real one, magnified 50 times on the boardroom's massive screen. Ladies and gentlemen, slide 1 of 47. Notice the pressure points, the pen lifts, the angle of the loops. My sister practiced, but not quite enough. The room was dead silent as I methodically presented each piece of evidence. The security footage of Clara in her wig, the email trail with Victoria instructing her on the forgery, the bank transfers to Victoria's personal accounts. Then came the video. Grandma Eleanor's face filled the screen, her voice clear and firm. This penthouse goes to Ingrid, my brave granddaughter who never got her due. If anyone tries to take it through deception, Clause 7.3 activates, null and void, with triple damages. My father's face had gone ashen. Eleanor knew? She knew everything, Dad, I said, clicking to the next slide. Including the 3 other instances where Victoria forged documents for elderly clients. Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Chen, both settled quietly, but the patterns are identical. Marcus Thompson stepped forward with his notarized documents. I've prepared a sworn affidavit detailing the forgery of my seal. This is a federal crime, punishable by up to 20 years in prison. Judge Winters was already on her phone. I'm calling the SEC. This level of fraud requires immediate investigation. CFO Patricia Summers raised her hand. I need to add something. We've noticed irregularities in Victoria's department accounts, almost $400,000 in discrepancies over 3 years. We were planning an internal audit, but this explains everything. Victoria's perfect composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand. I was trying to save this company. Ingrid doesn't deserve. Slide 23 shows the forensic analysis. Notice the pressure points inconsistent with my writing pattern. Victoria's voice cracked as she desperately tried to spin the narrative. This is just sibling jealousy. Ingrid always resented my success. These documents were authorized. It was a family arrangement. A family arrangement I knew nothing about? I pulled out my passport. Here are my entry and exit stamps. I was in London for every single date on these documents. Would you like to explain how I signed them in Seattle while simultaneously attending documented meetings with Steinberg and Associates? My father finally spoke, his voice hollow. Victoria, tell me you didn't do this. Dad, she's twisting everything. The penthouse was just sitting empty. That's not your decision to make. His rare show of anger made everyone freeze. If these allegations are true, Senator Crawford stood up. Robert, I'm sorry, but this goes beyond family disputes. We need to call the authorities immediately. Victoria turned on me, her mask completely gone. You planned this. You waited until the most important day of my career to humiliate me. No, Victoria, you planned this. I just documented it. I clicked to the next slide, her email to Clara about the wig. You even created evidence against yourself. The CFO was typing furiously on her laptop. I'm freezing all accounts associated with Victoria's department immediately. Board members, I need an emergency vote. Wait! Victoria grabbed the podium. I've increased our value by 30%. My strategies have made you all rich. You can't throw that away over a family property dispute. Judge Winter's response was ice cold. Ms. Beckman, what we can't afford is a CEO who commits federal crimes. The vote is whether to suspend you immediately pending investigation, not whether to thank you for profits built on fraud. Victoria's voice cracked. This is just sibling jealousy. Ingrid always resented my success. Marcus Thompson approached the board table with a folder. There's one more thing. Ms. Victoria Beckman attempted to bribe me yesterday, offering $50,000 to validate these forged documents. I recorded the entire conversation. He placed a phone on the table and hit play. Victoria's voice filled the room. Marcus, be reasonable. It's just paperwork. $50,000 in cash, no one needs to know. The security chief stood up. Ma'am, I need you to remain here until the police arrive. This is insane. Victoria looked around wildly for support, but found only cold stares. Dad, tell them how I've carried this company. Robert Beckman stood slowly, looking every one of his 65 years. The only thing you've carried is deception. Motion to suspend Victoria Beckman immediately, pending full investigation. Seconded, Judge Winters said immediately. All in favor? Senator Crawford called. 46 hands raised. My father abstained, his head in his hands. Motion carried. Victoria Beckman, you are hereby suspended from all positions at Beckman Holdings, effective immediately. Security, please escort her out. 2 security guards flanked Victoria. She looked at me one last time, her eyes full of rage. You think you've won? You're still nothing. You'll always be the weak little sister who— Ma'am, this way, the security chief interrupted, guiding her toward the door. As they reached the exit, 2 Seattle PD detectives walked in. Victoria Beckman? You're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and theft, exceeding $500,000. You have the right to remain silent. The vote was 46-0 with 1 abstention. Even father couldn't defend her. The room watched in stunned silence as my sister was led away in handcuffs, her Armani suit and carefully constructed reputation in ruins. Within 2 hours, the news had exploded across Seattle's business community. The Seattle Times headline read, Beckman Holdings VP suspended in 3.2 a fraud scandal. By evening, three national outlets had picked up the story, and the company's stock had dropped 8%. But something remarkable happened overnight. When markets opened the next day, Beckman Holdings released a statement. We have zero tolerance for fraud at any level. Our swift action demonstrates our commitment to integrity. The stock not only recovered but rose 3% above its previous close. Investors, it seemed, valued honesty over Victoria's brilliant strategies. Marcus Thompson became something of a local hero. The State Notary Association featured him in their newsletter, Integrity in Action, How One Notary Exposed Corporate Fraud. He received dozens of new high-profile clients within a week. Victoria's assets were frozen within 48 hours. The court ordered an audit that revealed the full extent of her theft, not just my inheritance, but the $400,000 skimmed from company accounts. The penthouse ownership was immediately restored to me, along with a court order for triple damages as specified in Clause 7.3. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from board members. Judge Winters texted, Your grandmother would be proud. That was the most professional takedown I've witnessed in 40 years of law. 5 other victims came forward within the week, elderly clients whose documents Victoria had altered for her benefit. The FBI opened a formal investigation into what they called a pattern of systematic fraud. The media coverage was extensive but focused on the facts, not sensationalism. Bloomberg ran a piece titled How One Woman's Meticulous Documentation Exposed Corporate Fraud, highlighting the importance of keeping records and standing up to workplace bullies, even when they're family. The prosecutor, Janet Williams, called it one of the clearest cases of familial fraud she'd seen in her 20-year career. The evidence Ms. Ingrid Beckman compiled is textbook. Every document authenticated, every claim supported, every timeline verified. Victoria was charged with 8 counts: wire fraud, mail fraud, forgery, identity theft, elder abuse for the other victims, embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted bribery. Each carried significant prison time. The plea deal came 3 months later. Victoria would serve 18 months in minimum security, pay full restitution, totaling $9.6 million, triple damages on my inheritance plus the embezzled funds, and be barred from any fiduciary position for 10 years. She'd also lose her real estate license permanently. The prosecutor said it was one of the clearest cases of familial fraud she'd seen, I told Sarah over coffee. Victoria's own emails did most of the work. The civil proceedings moved quickly. The court ordered Victoria to liquidate her assets, the Tesla, her downtown condo, her investment portfolio. Everything went toward restitution. The other victims were paid first, then the company, then my triple damages. Disbarment proceedings for her business licenses were swift and decisive. The Real Estate Commission's ruling was scathing. Ms. Beckman's actions represent a fundamental breach of fiduciary duty and public trust. Her husband, Richard, filed for divorce within 2 weeks, seeking full custody of their 2 children. His lawyer's statement was brief. Mr. Hendricks cannot remain married to someone capable of such deception. The final indignity came when Forbes ran an article. From VP to prisoner, how greed and arrogance destroyed a rising executive. They detailed how Victoria's need for control and status had ultimately cost her everything she'd worked and stolen to achieve. The hardest conversation came 3 days after the arrest. My father appeared at my door, looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. I failed you as a father, Ingrid. I see that now. We sat in my living room, the same one where Victoria had so often dismissed me. His apology came with tears I'd never seen before. I was so blinded by her confidence, her achievements. I never saw they were built on your work, your sacrifices. She was always your favorite, Dad. No, he said quietly. She was the easiest. You never demanded anything, never caused problems. I took that as not needing attention. I was wrong. My mother's revelation was even more shocking. I knew, she admitted a week later. Not about the forgery, but about her taking credit for your work. About the little lies that got bigger. I was too afraid of confrontation to speak up. Mom, your silence enabled her. I know. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I chose peace over truth for so long. Extended family members reached out in droves. Aunts and uncles who'd barely acknowledged me suddenly remembered all the times they'd suspected something was off about Victoria's stories. Cousin Sarah was the only one who'd actively supported me before, and I told her so. Victoria's husband Richard reached out personally. The kids keep asking why mommy isn't home, he said, exhausted. How do I explain that their mother is a criminal? Tell them age-appropriate truth, I suggested. That she made bad choices and needs to face consequences. Don't let them grow up with the same enabling environment that created this. Father's apology came with tears. I failed you as a father, Ingrid. I see that now. The board offered me Victoria's position immediately, but I had conditions. I'll take the position, but family meetings now require written agendas and recorded minutes. Every decision must be documented. No more handshake deals or assumptions of agreement. They agreed unanimously. Judge Winters even smiled. Your grandmother's granddaughter, indeed. She'd have made the same demands. I restructured the entire compliance department, implementing safeguards that would make Victoria's type of fraud impossible. Dual signatures for any transaction over $10,000. Quarterly audits by external firms. Mandatory ethics training for all executives, including my father. These seem excessive, Dad said during the first recorded family business meeting. They seem excessive because you've operated on trust and assumptions for 40 years, I replied. That's how Victoria thrived. Trust with verification isn't cynical, it's professional. The family dynamics required careful navigation. I set clear boundaries. Sunday dinners were optional, not mandatory. Business was never discussed at family gatherings. Any family member wanting to discuss company matters had to schedule a formal meeting with written agenda points. You're being cold, my mother complained. No, Mom, I'm being clear. There's a difference. Cold would be cutting you all off entirely. This is building a healthy relationship with boundaries. I also insisted on family therapy. Not as punishment, but as healing. We need professional help to understand how we got here, I told them. How a family created an environment where one child felt entitled to steal from another. The therapist, Dr. Martinez, specialized in family business dynamics. What you're describing is surprisingly common, she told us. The golden child who can do no wrong, the scapegoat who does all the work, the enabling parents. Breaking these patterns requires intentional effort. Victoria requested a meeting from county jail after 2 months. I sat across from her in the sterile visiting room, bulletproof glass between us. Orange had replaced Armani, but her manipulative tactics remained. Ingrid, please. We're sisters. You've made your point. Everyone knows you won. Can't you drop the charges? These aren't my charges, Victoria. They're federal. You committed crimes against multiple people. But you could speak to the prosecutor. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? You practiced my signature. You wore a wig to impersonate me. You stole $3.2 million. Her mask slipped. I was trying to build something. You were wasting that inheritance, letting it sit empty while you played lawyer in London. It wasn't yours to optimize. She leaned forward, desperation creeping in. What about my children? They need their mother. They need a mother who takes responsibility for her actions. I can't save you from consequences, Victoria, but I'll pay for your therapy if you commit to it. Therapy? She laughed bitterly. I don't need therapy. I need my life back. Your life was built on lies and theft. That life is gone. I stood to leave. The offer stands. Genuine therapeutic help to understand why you felt entitled to take what wasn't yours. But I won't enable you anymore. You're enjoying this, she accused. No, I said honestly. I'm sad it came to this. But I'm not responsible for your choices, and I won't sacrifice my peace for your comfort anymore. As I left, she called out, "I'm still your sister." "Yes," I replied without turning. "And that's why the therapy offer stands. But sisterhood isn't a license to steal." As chief legal officer, I implemented changes that transformed Beckman Holdings' reputation. Within 3 months, we'd become a case study in corporate compliance recovery. The Japanese investors specifically cited our commitment to transparency as the deciding factor in their $50 million investment. Our stock price climbed steadily, up 15% by quarter's end. 3 major clients who'd been hesitating signed long-term contracts, explicitly mentioning our demonstrated integrity in crisis as a key factor. The compliance measures I'd installed caught 2 other attempted frauds within the first month, both minor, both by employees who thought the new systems were just for show. They learned otherwise when they were terminated and prosecuted. "Your system saved us from a potential disaster," the CFO told me. "That second case could have cost us millions if it had gone undetected." My London firm, Steinberg and Associates, offered me a full partnership. "Someone who can handle family fraud with such professionalism is exactly who we need," David said during the offer call. "Name your terms." I negotiated a unique arrangement, senior partner status with the flexibility to work between Seattle and London, focusing on international real estate fraud cases. My first case involved a family business in Tokyo with suspicious similar dynamics to ours. The real validation came from an unexpected source. The American Bar Association featured my case in their ethics journal. When family and fraud collide, a masterclass in professional response became required reading in several law schools. Dad attended the ABA presentation where I spoke about the case. Afterward, he said quietly, "I'm proud of you. Not for exposing Victoria, but for doing it with such dignity. You could have destroyed her with vindictiveness. Instead, you let facts speak." 6 months after the board meeting, our family had found a new equilibrium. Victoria served her time in minimum security, attending mandatory therapy twice a week. Dr. Martinez reported she was finally beginning to understand her narcissistic patterns, though the road to genuine change would be long. I'd converted half of Grandma's penthouse into the Eleanor Beckman Center, a shelter for women escaping financial abuse. The other half I kept as my residence, a daily reminder that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. The shelter helped 12 women monthly, providing legal aid and temporary housing while they rebuilt their lives. "Your grandmother would have loved this," Marcus Thompson said during the center's opening. He'd become a regular volunteer, offering free notary services to the residents. Family dinners resumed, but with new dynamics. We met monthly, not weekly. Business was off limits. Everyone contributed to cooking instead of expecting me to handle everything. Mom had made remarkable progress in therapy, finally able to set boundaries with her own siblings who'd been taking advantage of her for years. Dad stepped down as CEO, appointing an external candidate while remaining chairman. "I need to learn to be a father without the power dynamics," he explained. We were slowly building an actual relationship, not just a hierarchical arrangement. Richard brought the kids to see me regularly. "They need to know their aunt, the real one, not the version Victoria painted." His daughter, 8-year-old Emma, had started saying she wanted to be a lawyer, like Aunt Ingrid who helps people. The Eleanor Beckman wing now houses women escaping financial abuse. Grandma would have loved that. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria's crime had ultimately created a sanctuary for victims of similar betrayals. Victoria's letter arrived on a Tuesday, handwritten on prison stationery. For the first time, her words felt genuine rather than calculated. "Ingrid, I've spent 4 months in therapy trying to understand why I felt entitled to take what was yours. Dr. Martinez keeps asking about my earliest memory of feeling less than, and I realize it started when Grandma would praise your kindness. I interpreted love as a competition and decided if I couldn't be the kindest, I'd be the most successful. I see now that I was so busy taking what I thought I deserved, I never earned anything real. Every achievement was built on someone else's work, usually yours. The promotion I got at 28? Based on the contracts you reviewed? The clients who praised my attention to detail? They were admiring your edits. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Dr. Martinez says that's not mine to demand or expect. I'm writing to acknowledge the truth. You were never weak. Your kindness, which I mocked, was strength I couldn't understand. Your patience, which I exploited, was you choosing peace over conflict. I stole more than money. I stole years of credit for your work, peace from your life, and trust from our family. The money can be repaid, but the rest, I know some things can't be fixed, only acknowledged. Victoria. My response was brief but honest. Victoria, thank you for the letter. Accountability is the first step toward change. I can't offer trust, that's earned slowly, over time, through consistent actions. But I can offer hope that you'll become someone who doesn't need to steal to feel valuable. The therapy continues to be covered. Use it well. Ingrid. Her letter ended. I see now that I was so busy taking what I thought I deserved, I never earned anything real. 1 year after that explosive board meeting, I stood at the same podium where Victoria had fallen. This time, presenting on ethical leadership in family businesses to an audience that included several Fortune 500 CEOs. Trust without verification isn't kindness, I explained. It's negligence that enables exploitation. The systems we implement aren't accusations, they're protections for everyone, including family members who might be tempted by opportunity. Beckman Holdings' valuation had increased 40% under the new leadership structure. We'd become known as the Compliance Phoenix, a company that rose stronger from scandal through radical transparency. Victoria's parole hearing was scheduled for the following week. I submitted a letter supporting her release with conditions: continued therapy, community service at a fraud victim support center, and regular check-ins with a parole officer specializing in white-collar crime. The night before my presentation, I'd found one last surprise in Grandma's penthouse, a letter hidden in her desk, addressed to me, dated a month before her death. Sweet Ingrid, if you're reading this, then Victoria has done what I feared she would. Your kindness was never weakness. It was your strength waiting for its moment. I left you the penthouse, not just as inheritance, but as a test, for her greed and your courage. You've spent years believing you were less than your sister. The truth is, you were always more. More honest, more capable, more deserving of respect. Sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most power. They just need the right moment to reveal it. Stand tall, my brave granddaughter. Your moment will come. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I kept the letter in my briefcase, a reminder that sometimes justice takes time, but truth always surfaces. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to justice. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. What boundaries do you need to set in your life? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of quiet strength prevailing over loud arrogance. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let anyone steal your peace again. Until next time, stay strong and stay true to yourself.